I saw about 1.5 columns of it in Newsweek magazine, just a little tiny article, and it came back to me again about all the 29 guys, no survivors. And it occurred to me, I said, nobody is ever going to even know a thing about this in years to come. It's going to be like every 300 shipwrecks, commercial shipwrecks that have taken place in the Great Lakes. And it's going to be completely forgotten, and that basically is why I wrote that song.
The SS Edmund Fitzgerald, a Great Lakes ore freighter, sank in Lake Superior on November 10, 1975. While Canadian singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot would later immortalize the tragedy with his unforgettable song, the Edmund Fitzgerald was already an icon in the Great Lakes shipping community with nearly 2 decades of service.
The Edmund Fitzgerald was launched in 1958 at 729 feet long. It was at the time the largest ship on the Great Lakes. Newspapers called it the largest object ever dropped into fresh water. The ship was very well known by ship watchers. That said, by 1975, it was no longer the largest ship on the Great Lakes. The age of the 1,000-footer was upon us, so there were larger vessels being built and launched, and although the Edmund Fitzgerald was, to some extent, showing its age, it still could have expected decades more service.
There's a picture of my dad I'm very proud of. He was a cook on the boats for many, many years. At that time, they're called stewards.
Well, ask any sailor and he'll tell you that a good steward's department goes a long way toward making a happy ship. And the food here, well, it has a far-flung reputation. Varied, well-cooked, plenty of it. Envied by sailors the world over.
He loved it. He was very proud that he was a good cook. And he was well-liked on the boats, too. Everybody liked him.
The Edmund Fitzgerald set out on what was to be its last run of the season on November 9th, 1975. On this occasion, it loaded in Superior, Wisconsin at the Eloise docks, headed not fully loaded to Cleveland, as Gordon Lightfoot sang, but it was headed to Detroit with over 26,000 tons of taconite. The Fitzgerald got into contact with the Arthur M. Anderson, which was heading off on a very similar route at about the same time, and the two ships remained in contact throughout the crossing. The ship moved eastward toward its first destination of Whitefish Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, the Soo Locks. That route had the Fitzgerald arriving down in that southeastern corner of Lake Superior just as two storm systems were more or less colliding.
I've heard from sailors that travel on the oceans that when you get a ship on fresh water, the waves act differently. They peak higher and the troughs are deeper than more rolling waves out on the ocean, so that makes it more dangerous. During the Fitzgerald storm and some of the other big ones, the waves would be 20 to 25, maybe 30 feet high.
The Arthur M. Anderson was helping, using its radar to help the Fitzgerald navigate. The Fitzgerald had lost both of its radars, and the last contact the two ships had was shortly after 7 p.m. on the night of November 10th. The report from the Fitzgerald was, "We are holding our own." Shortly thereafter, the ship blinked off the Anderson's radar. The Fitzgerald had been lost with all 29 men aboard.
My mom had called me and said that there was trouble, but she waited till the next day to tell me that the boat had sank. He had to take place of somebody else. They didn't want to be there, and the person before didn't want to be there. So my dad was kind of stuck in that position, but never thinking that this was going to go on. I will say this, he always said he wished to be buried at sea. He was just a good dad. I loved him a lot, and I miss him even more.
Around the same time that Edmund Fitzgerald was first launched, a young Gordon Lightfoot was just beginning his songwriting career. Coming of age during the 1960s folk revival, Lightfoot was no stranger to songs and ballads that recounted real-life historical events. His hit-making reputation steadily grew into the 1970s. He released a string of successful albums and singles leading up to the recording of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which took place just weeks after the ship went down.
It was a real risk for Gordon Lightfoot to write a song about such a recent shipwreck, about which there were so many unknowns. Part of the song's brilliance is that he turned that into a strength, and the song is really about what we don't know about the Edmund Fitzgerald, and that mystery is really the heart of the song, that we know the ship was lost, we know these men lost their lives, we don't know what happened in their final moments. That's part of what gives people chills when they think about that song.
I only know that I want to get the facts right in a situation like that. There is one verse where conjecture is implied, but the rest of it is all done from then going back and studying the newspaper articles.
I think he really captured something in those lyrics, and I think obviously a lot of people agree. Even, 1976, that song hit #2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It's a song that really captures something for people. There have been some historians that I've seen that kind of pick it apart a little bit. It's not 100% accurate. I don't believe that was the point when Gordon Lightfoot wrote this song. He wasn't trying to create an audio documentary about the ship itself.
It's worth noting that Duluth had a role in the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald becoming a hit. Dave Strandberg, a DJ here in Duluth, was one of the first DJs to play the song on the radio. He had an overnight show.
Summertime Dream album had just come out, and somebody called when I was doing the midnight shift and said, "Hey, did you realize that Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald is a cut on that album?" No, I didn't. I hadn't played the whole album, so I put it on and previewed it. Oh, this is great. Put it on the air, and by morning the phones were lit up, and the program director at the time decided, hey, we're going to put this in heavy rotation and start playing it.
Ultimately, it was released as a single, and Dave Strandberg ended up being awarded a gold record from the record label for his efforts.
It's not the kind of song that you would expect to become a hit song, but the fact that it did presented me with a new set of priorities in my life, because now it's a step up to the people, and that's what we have done for the last 25 or 30 years, step up to the relatives.
This is me and Gordon Lightfoot. That's when I showed him a picture of my dad, and you can tell by his face, I think anyway, that he was excited that I could show who he was singing about. He was so kind. He put his hand on my hand and said, I know. That's all he said. That's all I had to say to him, too. He knew the significance of the sadness that we all were feeling. Even though it's a very sad thing, there's been a lot of good that's come from it. I've met good people. I get a chance to tell my story. Sometimes it's hard to tell the story.
Every November, there are many events commemorating the loss of the Edmund Fitzgerald all around Lake Superior. Toward the eastern end of the Fitzgerald's final route, the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum at Whitefish Point holds a private memorial for families of the crew. On the other side of the lake on Minnesota's North Shore, Split Rock Lighthouse honors their memory with a public ceremony and beacon lighting.
Split Rock has always been kind of the staple landmark for the state of Minnesota, even back to when it was first constructed. People were always visiting it, and you've got this amazing light on a 120-foot cliff, just standing there proud and standing over there to protect the shipping lanes and the people.
Split Rock's beacon lighting tradition began quietly in 1985, 10 years to the day of the sinking, when site manager Lee Radzak happened to hear a certain song on the radio.
It was Sunday afternoon, November 10th, 1985, and typical early November weather, misty, kind of foggy, not real windy, but just a real gray day. Of course, they played Gordon Lightfoot's song on the radio. That's real popular that time of year. And I heard it and, listening to the words and really paying attention to it again. And I thought, well, how can I, remember the Fitzgerald and the other shipwrecks? I got back to the lighthouse, it was 4 o'clock, just starting to get dark. So I turned it on, wound up the weights all the way to the top so that it would go for 2 hours, and turned the beacon on. It was just on my own, just kind of a spur of the moment thing. I think it was probably a good 5 years before we started to advertise it. Once that happened, of course, then it became a lot more popular.
Over the last 4 decades, the event at Split Rock has grown in popularity, welcoming thousands of visitors to the site. But the heart of the program has always focused on the ship, the crew, and other shipwrecks on the Great Lakes.
Every year, there's a moment right before the ceremony when I walk out on the lighthouse stairs and I look out and the deck is just packed with people. And it's gotten a little bit more powerful because of the Coast Guard involvement the last few years, and we have them right on the stairs going up to the lighthouse. Having them all stand there at attention, looking out over the crowd of probably down on the lawn like 1,200 people. I turn and I look and I'm like, this is really something. We're about to do something that really matters to a lot of people.
Today, we remember the 29 who perished that night. These men were husbands, fathers, sons, and brothers.
Robert C. Rafferty, steward. John D. Simmons, wheelsman. We'll have a final toll for all those lost sailors on the Great Lakes.
While Split Rock Lighthouse's beacon provides a stunning tribute to honor Great Lakes maritime history, the heart of the ceremonies at both Split Rock and Whitefish Point lie in the solemn reading of crew members' names and the ringing of the bell. The bell at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum holds special significance for the families and Coast Guard members that gather to ring it.
So when people visit the museum, one of the first things they will notice is the bell from the Fitzgerald itself. It was recovered in 1995. As many surviving family members as possible have come in to ring the bell.
When it's time to ring the bell, it's like being in heaven. It's very quiet, you can just feel it. You can feel the shaking going on, that we're doing something that honors our men. Those 29 men are sitting in that room while we're doing that for them. And I don't care what anybody else says, I want to believe that. It makes me feel happier.
When he died in May 2023, Gordon Lightfoot's connection to the Great Lakes community was commemorated in many ways, including the beacon at Split Rock Lighthouse being lit in his honor.
I heard he passed away, and then I was like, oh man, I wish we could really do something for that. And it was such short notice. It was another one of those moments where I'm like, I could feel a connection with it there, and I felt like we were doing something good at the time.
The year that Gordon Lightfoot died, we rang the bell 31 times. And that 31st time was in memory of Gordon Lightfoot for everything he had done to keep the memory alive of those 29 men.
The song not only elevates the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, the real ship, the real people who served on it, not only elevates maritime activity on the Great Lakes, but it elevates all activity on and around Lake Superior and the Great Lakes.
Lightfoot's song really, it's so succinct on telling the story of all shipwrecks on Lake Superior and how dangerous Lake Superior is. Between the Fitzgerald, which is the most recent and the most famous wreck, and then tying in all that to all the other wrecks that have happened over the last 400 years on Lake Superior, it really was a connection.
Those close to the crew of the Edmund Fitzgerald will never forget the tragedy that occurred on November 10th, 1975. And thanks to Gordon Lightfoot's work, the legend lives on.